Okay, so we've already been through question 1, now we're going to look at question 2. So we had to return a welcome message, and there seems to be a similar pattern, right? What do they all contain? They're all strings, yep, so we're definitely returning a string, but they all contain a certain word, hello. They all contain hello, right? So we can use that to our advantage. We don't have to make that value dynamic, we can just hard code the value hello in this case, yeah? Let's go the wrong way. So I need to return again, yeah? And then what shall I put? We've got different ways of writing strings, haven't we, in JavaScript? What ways have we got? What symbols can we use? We can use single quotes, we can use double quotes. Are there any other ways? There are backticks as well, yeah. So maybe let's write it with single quotes first, because I think everyone's familiar with those, and then we'll try and rewrite it using backticks as well, yeah? So, return, so we said we're going to return a string, so that would return a string, right? And then we said hello was constant to all of our return cases, and then we wanted to return a variable next, yeah? We wanted to return a name. In the first case it was Peter, second Marta, and then Andrew for the third case. So how do we make sure that the return value is different each time? I think, yeah, it's been started off for you, hasn't it? We can actually pass that as an argument to the function, and then we can use it within our function body. So how do I just write username like that? Plus. Thank you, yep. So camel case is what we tend to use in JavaScript, yeah? So the first word is lowercase letter, and then the second word, there's no spaces, but we capitalize that first letter of the next word. Okay, how about now then? Are we happy to run that and see what we get? Capital H as well, yep. So if we looked over there, capital H, semicolon, very nice. We're getting elegance now. Anything else? No? So control. We've got some confetti, so I'm assuming that means we've got it right. So it's gone green over the left-hand side, and then if I scroll down, we can also see no elegance issues. So well done spotting that semicolon there again at the end. Our next challenge then is to rewrite this. Well, let's maybe see if anyone did it first in a different way. So here we are. And if I try and zoom in, oh, I'm getting better. So that was similar with the double quotes for Porek there. Nilufer, yeah, what happened with Nilufers then? Why did that not work? You spotted it already? Yeah, so the quotes, right? So you can see that she's got her variable, but then she's put her variable inside of the quotes. So because it's inside of the single quotation marks, it's treating it as its actual value. It's treating it as an A. So you probably got hello plus A returned, right? And you were thinking, why aren't I getting hello Peter or something like that? So can we all spot that mistake, yeah? Yeah, we'll clear it up. Cool. Who else? So that you've mixed single quotes and a backtick there. Which is okay, it worked, right? But it's overcomplicated in my opinion, yeah? So we have, well, I think we can see above maybe how Vincent's written it. Yeah, so that worked because you've got one string and then you're adding on another string. But the idea of using backticks is that we can just write one string and we can combine actual string values and our variables in almost any way that we choose. Just by doing the spacing inside of the backticks and putting any variable in this form. So we put a $sign, then we open our curly braces, the variable name, and close our curly braces. And that will tell us that it's either a variable or just some JavaScript code that we need to execute as JavaScript code and not as an actual string. Yeah. So you can see the way Vincent did it up here. Anything wrong with that, or are we pretty happy with that as a solution?
Does everyone know where the backticks is on your keyboard? Because it's something that you don't know.
I have no idea where it is on Ricardo's keyboard. I could tell you on mine, but...
So if you're a Mac user, the backticks is on the bottom left. If you are a Windows user, backticks is on top left. Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah,
Windows is below the escape button, and
Yeah.
Mac is bottom left, next to the Z.
I was doing this in a Challenger, and I had to ask, why is this not working? And one of the guys in the feedback said, yeah, you're missing the backticks. And yeah, I just googled where it was. Backticks, yeah.
So backticks is a new thing. So backticks were introduced in 2015, 4 years ago. Why backticks? Because in the long term, it simplifies a bit the process of concatenating literals like hello with variables, username. It's easier to build strings. Yeah? Otherwise, you need to add pluses, and it's easy to fail to mess around with the pluses. Yeah? Also, it feels a bit annoying for a new developer, because when I use plus, I expect to add two elements. 1 plus 2 equals 3. But hello plus Codiri, what that means? It's a bit strange, right? Still valid, you can use them if you want, but in the long term, the suggestion is follow Vincent style, right? Which is the backticks, and then whenever you want to use a variable, look at the syntax. Dollar, and then curly bracket, and inside of the curly brackets, you put your variable name. Yeah, it's easier, right? Does anyone know why we use dollars instead of sterling or euros or any other currency character?
It's because of JavaScript being created by
Well, because the majority of the software, this is not only about JavaScript, comes from the US, right? That's the way it's been working historically speaking. I think it's fair to say that even though on the next 2 months we'll be learning a lot about React, you know who is the owner of React? It's Facebook, which are Americans, right? By the first time ever since 1995, so React has a competitor that wasn't born in America. So does anyone know who is the other popular UI library in the JavaScript world today? It is Vue, correct. And where is Vue coming from? It's from China. Yeah, it's from China. In other words, why we do React and not Vue? Because in Europe and America is clearly the king. But if you're planning to move to Asia, especially to China, yeah, Vue is a very good option. But don't worry, because once you learn React, learning Vue is a piece of cake. So at the moment, the important thing is not to learn every detail about React, is to get familiar with the way of coding with React, because then the learning curve will be much softer if you want to learn something else. Yeah? You know, JavaScript evolves very quickly. Yeah, evolve very quickly. Whatever is trendy today, it may not be anymore in 5 years, or in 4, or in 3 years. So the important thing is to become a good developer. So once the new thing knocks your door, because that will happen, at least the transition should be as soft as possible. Yeah? In the past, that was way more complicated, but today, you know, coding became much easier. As you can see, you can do many things with just typing a few lines of code. So yeah, don't worry about that. Yes.
Same like if you're in Germany, you still have to put like function as it is there in English.
Yeah. So coding is, thankfully, you don't need to learn new language every time you move to a new country, just for coding purposes. Yeah. So we just use English syntax, and that's it.
Sure.
So again, Abdul, you just invoke the function there again. Yes, so definitely not needed on our platform to invoke the function. I think less people invoked it on this one, probably because you had to invoke it 3 times, and they thought I can't be bothered to write that, so so they just wrote the function this time, and that was fine. Yeah. Anything else on that question, or I think we're probably okay to move on. If not,
I mean, Ricardo, you said the reason why we can use why we use the dollar sign is that because the dollar sign is what we can use to as when we're having identifiers.
Yeah.
Is it because the dollar sign
It's historically speaking, and this has nothing to do with JavaScript. This is much older than JavaScript, from the 60s or 50s even. Yeah, so speaking, the way we identify variables in classic coding with a dollar sign. So that was a way to, visually speaking, easily see that there is a variable, there is something important there, right?
All right. Moving on. Get array indexes. So what was expected here then?
Return the index of elements within an array.
Yeah, so we still had to return an array, didn't we? And we just had to return the numbers, the index of the items, or the number of indexes of the number of items in each array there. So why does it start at 0 and not 1? Because in JavaScript, yeah, arrays are 0 index based. So yeah, don't let that trick you or catch you out, especially if you're using array.length perhaps, and you know you want the last element in the array. Is it array.length or array.length minus 1? Yeah, to get the last element. How about this case? Is that going to work though? Or we just return an empty array like that? Do we have to do anything special? Or should we see? Yeah. So what did you guys put? Who got this one right? Ooh, what's happened there?
No, you need to scroll to the left a bit. It's probably
Oh yeah, okay. I thought you wrote some new language there for it to. Oh, I have to zoom out slightly maybe. Oh no, zooming out with you so I can see.
All right.
There we go. Beautiful. So I think most of you used for in loops, yeah? Everyone?
Yeah, that was a big tutorial.
Yeah,
Okay, so should we start with you?
I think the question explicitly invited you to use for in, right? That's why everyone stick to that pattern.
So if we take Ewan's as a reference point,
What the hell went wrong there?
well, we're going to solve it together, so let's see what went wrong. So it looks like the first step he did was to create an array, right? He created, well, hold on, let indexes equal 0, 1, 2. So why did you do that, Ewan?
I was just following the tutorial and then, testing and
I think you
testing.
probably mixed a couple of things that the tutorial did there, maybe. So I can't remember the exact tutorial, so I can't say for certain. But it looks like what Ewan's doing, he either wants to declare an array called indexes,
So
or you want to do some sort of comparison, yeah? It seems like you've mixed two steps in there to me. So what would...
should you
Ugh.
array there then instead of indexes? No.
Singular equals.
That's going to complain, isn't it? That's going to give us syntax error, isn't it? I think.
It won't work, right?
Yeah.
Because we're trying to compare a variable that doesn't exist yet because we're creating it against an array. So that will return false, right? So I think the idea that Ewan was trying to achieve here is he was trying, ideally, to initialize an empty array, like that, right? So in other words, what is an array? That's the first question, right? You see, arrays in JavaScript are defined by square bracket. Don't get confused with curly bracket. Square and curly, right? So curly bracket are useful to deal with objects. So what is an object, as we'll learn this week? An object is a collection, right? Imagine that you have a user profile. So it could be a collection of key value pairs. First name, Peter. Last name, Jones. Age, 41. You know, email, salary, you know, a collection of properties. That's an object. Yeah? We'll talk a lot about objects every single day. There is one topic exclusive for objects on the beginner training, which I obviously recommend you to start practicing, the sooner the better. So one thing is an object, but now this is not an object. This is an array. So what's an array? An array is a collection of elements, fruits, apple, banana, orange, yeah? Countries, France, Italy, Belgium, a collection, something that we can iterate, we can loop from the beginning to the end. And where generally speaking, the order matters. Not necessarily, but it may be important. It's not the same thing finishing first than last. I think we agree on that, right? So in that particular case, Iwan, so he created, or he tried to create an empty array, an array with no data at all, and the idea will be to fill the array, to add values to the array, yeah? So with that structure, for in, which is a new thing, this is introduced in 2015 in JavaScript, we can easily iterate an array to get the indexes. So what this means? What indexes mean? The indexes is the position of each element on the array. So what's the index of Plato? It's 0, that's correct. What's the index of Aristotle? It is 1, yeah? Yeah? So we know that from a human point of view, that's very easy. But technically speaking, how do we extract that information? There are many different ways to do that. That may not even be the simplest one, but this is what the exercise wanted us to do. So, for let index in array, what's the first value of index? 0, that's correct. And now the question is, how do we add 0 into the array of indexes? How do we add elements into an array? Push. I like that. I like that. So, do you remember what we said before about doing return? Back to the question, the first question on Nilofer. If we do return, we are aborting the function. So we shouldn't really return anything here. Because if we return something, it doesn't matter how big the array is. On the first iteration, we'll give up. Yeah? We don't want to give up. We don't want to give up. Instead, we want to add the index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the array of indexes. And as I suggested, we can do indexes dot push parenthesis index. So we're creating our array with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Yeah? Again, we don't need to invoke the function. And what do you think, guys? Do we need anything else? Correct. Correct. That's fantastic, Abdul. What is the function returning at the moment? Undefined. That's correct. That's fantastic. The functions, generally speaking, should return something, right? Function is input, output. You call the function and it gives you something back. Give me the keys, the function gives you the keys. Give me the score, the function gives you the score, right? At the moment, the function is get array indexes. It ignores you, right? It's going to return nothing. We don't want that. We want to return something. So as Abdul suggested, outside, after finishing the process of filling the array of indexes, return what? Indexes, correct. Yep. And that's pretty much it. If it any helps, this is one of the most complicated questions on the beginner training. Yeah? So even if you feel it's a bit complicated, that's okay. That's okay. The important thing to note here especially is the for loop. That structure, these 3 lines. When you have an array of fruits, cars, sexy people, whatever, you can easily iterate on each element and get the index, which is 0 base. That's the important thing, the important aspect. So if we run it, see, it does work. Do we get any, oh, right, look, we got a warning, missing space before opening brace. Yeah? So let's review what's going on. The very first time you solve a problem, you are likely to get warnings. That's fine, no problem at all. But before moving to the next question, I strongly recommend you to spend a minute trying to see what's going on, right? Why we got a warning, missing space before opening brace on line number 3? Can anyone see? Correct. That's correct. That's correct. One of the things about JavaScript is consistency. Look, on line number 1, we close the parentheses, then we put a space, and then we open a curly bracket. Yeah? On line number 3, it's a very similar structure. You see? It's pretty much the same thing. However, here we have a space. Here we don't have any space. So for consistency reasons, in order to make our code as much predictable as possible, let's put always a space before a curly bracket.
And on line 4, do you have to do the same after the curly bracket, after the bracket with the semicolon or not?
Not really, not really. So we put a semicolon at the end of every sentence, of every instruction. So how do we know if something is an instruction or not? It's sometimes challenging, I agree with you. But for instance, line number 2, that's an instruction, semicolon. For loop is a bit special. For loop is very special. We don't put a semicolon around. But in here, because we are taking an action, add the element to the array, then put the semicolon. Yeah? This is like learning a new language, like learning German. Some rules are pretty well defined, some others are hard to predict. So you need to get used to them, unfortunately. But hey, no problem at all, right? If we are not sure if on line number 4 we need a semicolon or not, no problem. Try and see what happens, right? Luckily, we got the elegance console. So if we miss a semicolon, we'll tell you, hey, you need to learn that inside of the for loop, you need to put a semicolon. Yeah? So over time, it will feel much more natural to determine when a semicolon is necessary and when not. Yeah? Any questions?
Sorry, Ricardo.
Yeah.
In the function
Yeah.
parameters, the array,
Yeah.
there's no specification to say I'm passing an array.
That's a good question. It's a good point. Well, technically speaking, there is a specification of passing an array because look, on the first example, how many arguments do we receive? 1 or 2? What do you think?
Argument, that's 1.
It is 1. That's correct. It's 1 argument of type array, not the square brackets. 1 argument. That argument may have many elements, but in terms of how many arguments, we got 1. On the second example, how many arguments do we receive?
1.
Again, it's 1 array, right? On the third example and last, how many arguments do we receive? 1 of type array. Yeah. So in other words, we always receive 1 argument of type array. Because of that, I don't necessarily think that array is a bad name because in reality we have an array. However, if we want to be a bit more specific, can we display the type of the array? Can we display the type of data we are dealing with? Yes? So how will we call that? Can we rename it? Array with what?
Name index.
Name index, wrong.
We need to define
Y-
it down the column.
Yeah, correct. And defining what? So if we don't like the word array, can we rename it? I mean, we're talking about philosophists, yeah? It looks like, right? It looks like the examples are consistent. It looks like we're talking about the same topic. Are these Formula One cars? No. Are these, I don't know, Hollywood actors? No, right? Philosophies, right? So it's okay to be a bit deeper and explain the type of data we are dealing with, right? So can we type here, I don't know how to type that, yeah, I'm sure it's not correctly spelled. Anyway, right, you get the idea that we can be a bit more specific. So that improves the readability of your algorithm, yeah? Because you explain the nature of the data that you are dealing with. Yeah, I hope that helps. Yeah, of course, it would be horrible to call that fruits. We're talking about fruits, right? It will be horrible to call that Brexit. Don't do that. Just try to be descriptive. If you don't feel brave enough, all right, array is okay. It's clearly better than string. because we don't have strings, we have array of data, right? But as far as possible, try to be a bit more specific. Any questions?
Is it the name that matters here? Just the name that matters?
Just the name that matters, correct. So the only thing we know is we receive one argument. We can put whatever name you want here, whatever you want, yeah? Whatever you want. As far as then you reuse the same name, that's fine. I can call that Abdul, right? Will this work or not at the moment, as it is? No, why not? Correct, in the for loop, we don't have that variable at the moment, right? So we'll have to rename it. Yeah, again, don't do that. But technically speaking, you see the confetti, that's correct, right? Anything else, guys? No?
Push is a new one.
Say it again?
Push.
Push, yes. So push is a method that you get tired of using in the next 2 months to add elements to an existing array. Yeah, we'll see how to add elements, how to remove elements, how to edit existing elements. Yeah, we'll see all the API of the array in JavaScript. But arguably, push is the most popular one because generally speaking, you have an empty array and you fill it. When you go to Tesco to buy some groceries, you have an empty basket and you fill it. So that's the same pattern, right? Empty array and you fill it over time. Anything else? No?
All right, so we've got 2 more left, I think. Oops. Oh, no, we're going over there now. Yeah, cool. 18 minutes, we got time. Get keys. All right. So how many arguments have we got in this case? Ricardo was saying before we had 1 in the arrays question. So how many arguments have we got now?
Is that 3?
So we've had a 3 and we've had a 1. Who agrees with 3? So someone else agrees with 3. And then everyone else agrees with 1? Or someone got something different? Yeah, everyone else agrees with 1. So in this case, there's actually just 1 argument getting passed to the getKeys function. And that is an object. How do we know it's an object? Curly braces, yeah, is definitely part of it. That would be the first clue. And then the second one is we see here that we've got what we call key value pairs. Yeah, so we've got a property with a colon, and then we've got a value that follows it and a comma to separate these key value pairs. Yeah, so that distinctly looks like an object in JavaScript to me. And it's just the 1 argument. Yeah, there's 3 properties within that object, definitely, but there's only 1 argument getting passed to the getKeys function. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Curly braces is the object, right?
Curly braces is a lot of things in JavaScript, unfortunately, but yeah, to create an object literal in JavaScript, then we use curly braces, and then inside we put data in the form of key value pairs separated by commas. Yeah? Okay. And what do we want? Well, we want to just return name, category, and age. So we just want to return the keys of this object. Anyone know how we would do that? I think a few of you definitely do, because you got it right in the challenge. What method can we use? Object.keys. So by that, do you mean if I wrote object there, whoops, would I do object.keys like that, like I do with most methods? Yeah, so it's a method that's coming from the built-in JavaScript object in this case, and then that itself takes an argument, and the argument is the object that you want to get the keys from, yeah? Not the built-in data type object in JavaScript, but the actual object literal that is over here, yeah, with these values. So, oh, not object, single object. Anything else? Return always, yeah, good. Should we try that? What will it return? What data type will it return? So the object.keys method returns what?
The set of keys.
Is it a string? Is it a string of the keys, or is it?
Wasn't it
And the pair and the key value there.
Does it return the key value pairs, or just the keys, right? Because we want
Yeah.
just the keys, which is why we're using object.keys. So let's have a look. Let's run it, and then you can tell me what gets outputted. So we got it right first and foremost. Oh no, it's up the top, isn't it? Yeah. So, oh no, it won't tell me what I've returned, will it? Because I got the question right. I was going to show them there, but so object.keys returns an array. Yeah, it returns an array of the keys as a comma-separated list, a comma-separated collection. Yeah. And yeah, okay, those keys will actually be strings in this case. Yeah, if that was what you were saying, Richard. Yeah. So it returns an array of strings. There's a very similar method. How would we get the values out of an object?
Values.
Object.values, yeah, exactly, right? So you get, you know one, you know the other pretty much, yeah? If you want the keys, object.keys. If you want the values, object.values. Always returns an array of either the keys or the values.
Oh, so the keys refers to like the
The keys refers to the bit before the colon,
age.
and the value would refer to the bit after the colon, yeah? Key value pairs, we call them in objects.
And as you can see here, I hope you got the feeling that JavaScript is case sensitive, right? It's not the same typing object with capital O, which is something that comes with JavaScript for free, than object with lower o, which is the variable that we have created here, right? So be careful, JavaScript is case sensitive. Capitals do matter. Also, can we be a bit more specific? I'll tell you something, I'm personally not a big fan of calling variables objects because it feels, unless we have no idea what the data is about, can we be a bit more specific looking at the data? I mean, persons, you see, that's literally the idea. Even if I don't know who is that guy, well, I can assume that we're talking about humans, right? People. So I particularly like to call, you said users, all right? Users, no, user in singular, right? Because we have a single user. User or person or artist, I don't know, but be a bit more specific. I hope you agree that the code is easier to read like that than object.keys object. It feels a bit more stressful to parse and to understand.
Yeah, I think that's it for that one. Any questions, guys, before we move on?
You want to check if anyone on the call, on the call?
Oh yeah, let's see if anyone did anything different, but
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, it's hard to do something different here, right?
holder, yeah, holder of the keys. I don't think I'd give either of those people the keys to, certainly not Sacha Baron Cohen. I wouldn't give him any keys to my house. So someone else used OBJ for object, used an A. Yeah, so let's try and be as specific as possible, guys. I know I wasn't, but it's good for demonstration purposes, right? Person, so nice. Abdul used person. Did he invoke it? No, he's gotten lazy now. He doesn't bother invoking the function anymore, which is good. We don't want you to. Yeah, I think everyone did the same thing. Oh, yeah, on to the next question. Yep. So last question now. I think 3 was possibly the most challenging. So hopefully if you got past 3, then you managed to solve the last one as well. Oh, we get given quite a lot of, so this is a different format, right? We get given quite a lot of code to begin with, but it's not correct, is it? So that's our spec. Someone's trying to create the algorithm. Doesn't work as expected. Can we spot the issue? All right, let's go back and look at the code. So what's happening on this first line then? Return number. What's that little percent doing? That's the modulus. So what does that give us? The remainder, yeah? So it's the same as doing number divided by 2, and then what is the remainder? So if we had 7, modulus 2, we'd get a modulus of 1, yeah? Because there's, 2 goes into 7 3 times with a remainder of 1. So, if we're saying number modulus 2 equals 1, we're doing that comparison. And what's another way to say this? We have 2 types of numbers. They're either... okay. But in this case, what is this bit doing? Odd and even, right? It's saying if we've got a number and we divide it by 2, and the modulus is 1, that must be a something number? An odd number, right? Yeah. And if we did modulus 0, that would be an even number. Yeah, so that's how we test for odd and even numbers. So it was like that. So in other words, return even, question mark, then we got another return, something, colon, another, yeah, so what's this format with this question mark and a colon? So it's a ternary operator. Yeah, what does that mean for someone who might not know?
It's conditional statement. Like if we have an odd number, then multiply by 3, or else just return the number.
Yep, so for the benefit of people watching at home, then it's similar to an if-else statement. So in our case, if we've got an odd number, then do this line 3, return number times 3, else just return the number itself.
So it's a shorthand version of an if statement.
So you could view it as a shorthand version of an if-else statement, yeah. Okay, so that sounded right, didn't it? We said if the number was even, then return 3 times the number, otherwise return the number. That was what we had in our spec. So what's not working? We've got too many returns, yeah. So if we did write it as an if statement, so if we had if blah blah blah, return number times 3, we'd actually need that return statement, right? But when we rewrite it as a ternary, we only need a single return. And where would that return be? Would it be on line 2, line 3, line 4? Line 2, right? So we return the result of our ternary operator. So if we got rid of those, it's looking better, I think. Is there anything else we need to do, or will that now work? Seven minutes to decide, no time pressure. Yeah, do you want to run it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a return, and then our condition, which should evaluate to true or false, yeah, which it does because we've got a comparison operator in there. So if true, which one's it going to do? That one or that one? Line 3 or line 4 if this evaluates to true? Line 3, yeah? So when line 2 is true, then the first statement is run. But if line 2 is false, then the second statement is run. Yeah, that's how the ternary operator works, separated by a colon. Let's run it. Ooh, I was thinking we didn't get it right then, but we got the confetti. Yeah, nice. There was a slight delay for some reason. And any issues? No. Okay, let's have a look what you guys wrote, see if you did any other approaches. Okay, so Nilofer first then. Anything you might improve or do differently, Nilofer, or someone else? So you've done an if-else statement. So you actually rewrote the ternary into an if-else, which is fine at this stage. If you're happy using if-else statements, then go for that. If that just works logically better for you. Try and get used to as well, though, writing the ternaries, yeah, because you'll see it increasingly in code nowadays. So. Any elegance issues with Nilofer's solution as well? Yeah, the indentation's not right, is it? So we've got a function, and then whatever comes next inside of our function should be indented. And then this is the opening block of the if statement, yeah? So usually that would be on the same line as the if. And again, we'd indent inside. So maybe we'll copy this over, shall we? And just quickly indent it. No, sorry, I can't. Okay, so first we said indentation there. Where's this curly bracket going to go? Yeah? Spacing? Where? There? Any more? Double equals, is that okay? Sorry, we're really picking this one apart, aren't we? But so we return that. Line 4, I think we're on now. Is that okay? That's okay? So indent it. How far? There? Is line 3 okay then as well? So every time we've started the new block, so this denotes a block of code as well as an object, right, in JavaScript. So the curly braces come to a new line and indent one tab. So we've got another block here that's opened, come to a new line, indent one further tab, yeah? So you can see that the if block is lined up there and the return statement is indented inside of the if block, yeah? Then we've got an else. That's interesting. So that worked, didn't it? I think. But, yeah. So what would we generally have as well after the else? Yeah. So generally we'd then create something. Look, and if I just hit return, then it actually indents it correctly for me. And then where does the line 8 code go? So we need to stick that inside of our else, yeah? Oh. So again, we've got a block, drop down the line, indent once. And you've also called triple odd number again, so we don't need that. That's looking definitely a lot neater to me. Yeah. It's something that comes with practice, but you can understand why we did each thing, yeah? So for each block. Right, let's run that, see if we get any elegance issues. Nope, no elegance issues found, right? And yeah, go ahead.
Can I add
Sorry.
something? Yeah, so because you're going to timeout, so just to recap that part. So you see the two types of conditional rendering we have, right? If else and ternary. So in classic JavaScript, if I have a function called can I buy beers, depending on how old you are, right? You get the idea, right? So we can do if what? Age about what?
18?
18, right? Ideally, return yes. Else, return no. Yeah? So that's the classic structure of an if-else. If something, boom, do something. Else, do something else. In modern JavaScript, we can easily replace that with a ternary operator. I'm typing the same code as above. Age greater or equal 18, then yes, else, no. It's a compact version, you see? Line number 8 easily replace numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So for simple operations, can I do that? Yes, no, true, false. For these sort of things, the ternary operator is convenient. However, be careful because sometimes your condition is more complicated. In that case, and you will see that in the future, the ternary operator may go against readability. Yeah, because we do many things in short space. Yeah, so that's why it doesn't necessarily mean that the ternary operator is always better. Nothing is white or black. It always depends on readability, which is something sometimes personal. Yeah? But long story short, if the condition is very simple, like this one, to me, ternary operator looks fantastic. If your logic gets more complicated, don't use the ternary, use if else. Yeah, so that was it.
Yeah, that's really
Oh yeah.
Scroll up.
Where? Which one's your? It's that one. Yep. Yeah. So you're saying if number divided by 2, the remainder is not equal to 0. Yeah, you've used that exclamation mark, which is the not operator in JavaScript. Again, should we use exclamation mark equals or exclamation mark equals equals? Double equals, yeah, is the equivalent to the triple equals when we're doing a direct comparison, yeah, rather than a not comparison. Oh, it runs, yeah. Because both of them are numbers anyway, right? There's nothing inherently wrong with it. You're just saying, take a number. So what was our first number? 6, right? So 6 divided by 2, is the remainder 0? Yes, it is. So that's saying if it's not equal to 0, then return that bit. So if it was equal to 0, of course, it's going to return just the number itself.
So, generally speaking, in the long term, I would suggest you to minimize the number of times you use the negator condition. Why? Because from a human point of view, it's more complicated to negate things than to assert them. Well, let me rephrase that. Nilofer, if the remainder is 1, that's it. This positive sort of assertion in the long term is easier to manage than if the remainder is not 0. Is not 0, what can it be, right? I mean, in that case, it may not make a big difference, but in the long term, yeah.
Yeah, just keep it honest is the summary of that, yeah? Keep it honest, keep it truthy.
Any elegance warning for Patrick? Apart from the single equals?
The space after break.
Yeah.
Nice.
Keep it consistent.
Good spot. He said the perfect word. It's consistency, right? So the thing is, even if you like to put this space, which I don't really think is very standard, but even if you put it, it should be there all the time, right? And here, for instance, on line number, whatever that line is, line number 3, we got a space, but on line number 5, we don't have any space, right? So for consistency reasons, we shouldn't have a space before the semicolons. What's wrong with else?
Oh, you're saying, can it be on the same line as closing of the if? Yeah, I think generally it's written like that. That's the more standard way to write it.
I think that's a common pattern to write if else, yeah. Which usually is very readable, right? If something, then indented to the right, that means this is inside of the if statement, return something else. Again, curly bracket, inside else, return something else.
Okay, yeah, I think that's beginner done. Are we going to leave it at beginner for today, I think?
Yeah, so in the long term, we'll be progressively moving from beginner to intermediate and then to expert. It was the first day. It took longer than usual, so I think it's time to start doing some work, right? So, in other words, next thing is Coldflix. So, as part of Coldflix, we'll start creating a professional app. This is the exercise. We'll run twice a week, yeah? Apart from that, the main activity will be Coldflix. So, please, everyone, make sure you've sent us your GitHub username on Slack to grant you access to the GitHub project. Apart from that, let me ask you something. Did you follow this